welcome to the 28th day of our routine and ritual challenge. Just want to give voice to and appreciation to all the people who have tuned in over the last 28 days. I know from my end this has been a really fun way to share, fun way to connect with not only the teachers in this community on this platform, but it's been a really fun way to share the things that really light me up the most about having a yoga practice. And so anyways, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Today I wanted to focus a little bit on food as medicine, and I'm gonna, in a couple of conversations that I've had, I've spoken about my time and my training that I did in India. And I want to start this conversation there too, because so much more than just a movement practice. I think our yoga and I think our routines and rituals can really expand out into all aspects of our life. And my connection with food and how my food is grown was one of the biggest avenues of me pursuing the career that I have now, and just sharing yoga in general. So, back when I was in India, I grew up in Wyoming, and the only reason I'm giving this context is because I was one of those kids that was raised on meat and potatoes. I grew up rodeoing, and so my perception on food and how food was grown, and having a spiritual connection to the food that I ate was never really in my realm. And so when I went to India, that was my first introduction to being a vegetarian. And in the video before this one, I talked about these 5 points of yoga, 5 ways in which we can practice yoga to kind of get this holistic approach towards it. And right, the holistic approach is yoking, is finding a connection. The word yoga means to yoke. So connecting our individual soul, Atman, with this collective soul, Brahman. And so my teacher, Yogi Ram, he said, all right, 5 ways in which you practice to really encompass and embody this this practice, especially going back to the United States, going back to the West. Take this philosophy, take this theory with you, and make sure we're remembering that yoga is a lot more than just, the asanas that we do. It's more than just these fancy postures. And so at the time, proper diet, so we had proper exercise in the form of asanas, so our body can really work. All the organs, all the systems of the body can really be functioning at their best. Proper breathing, proper relaxation in the form of shavasana or meditation, positive thinking, which I spoke about in my last talk, and then proper diet. And proper diet was in the form of being a vegetarian, which I thought this was so cool, because the way he described it was that, we're born with this karmic bank account. And everything that we do in life, our thoughts, the foods we eat, every action that we have has an equal and opposite reaction that affects our karmic bank account. And so the way he described it, which I just loved because it was such an easy way for me to wrap my brain around such a big idea, but is that a cow, if we have a hamburger, right, the sensory experience for that cow is so much more than the sensory experience for lettuce that we eat in a salad. So in terms of accumulating the least or the most or the least amount of karma, if we stick to a vegetarian diet, right, a cow can see, it can hear, it can taste, it can feel, it has this whole sensory experience. And so that was one of the reasons why they kind of encouraged us to shift or consider shifting to a vegetarian diet. So when I moved back, when I got back from India, I started studying at the University of Wyoming, a degree in sustainability sustainability and yoga, actually. I got to mix the two, which was so fun. And what I began to realize is that the way in which so much of the land around the state in which I grew up in Wyoming, the way so much of the land was managed, and same in a lot of the states around, was that these big monocropped farms. And I remember driving across the states to different rodeos as we were growing up, and like thinking how beautiful it was to see these like perfectly lined spaces of, whether it be corn or wheat or, soy, whatever it was. I just thought like, oh wow, it's so mesmerizing. And I just loved, being outside, loved being in nature. I loved just the magic of how we connect to the world around us. And so up until a certain point, that was always like a view or an image that I just thought was so beautiful. And then as my awareness levels grew a little bit, I started to learn, maybe some of the detrimental effects of growing so much food in a way that is dependent on using herbicides and pesticides and big heavy equipment to grow and produce food. So sticking to the theme of this class today was food as medicine. So I don't think that we need to shift totally to a vegetarian diet. And again, I encourage us all to just kind of contemplate this conversation and think like, really, where is your yes? How does this feel in your body? Really, what resonates the most with you and your lifestyle? But I had to bring up the question when I got back to the States of like, well, in terms of karma, right? If every living thing has a soul and we're part of this big collective, when we start looking at farms that are 2,000-3,000 acre farms that only have one crop growing on them, and everything else we're trying to kill, like karmically, you look at that one piece of land and like on a microbial level, right? If you take a microscope and take a look at what's going on underneath of the soil, there's this whole community of microbes that are so important, we're learning, to the health of our own personal systems. So I'm going to break this down just a little bit, but the way in which our food, the way in which we uptake minerals and nutrients in anything that we're eating, whether it's our potatoes or whether it's our salad or whether, even animals that we're eating, the minerals and nutrients that we depend on in our own bodies come from the dirt. So difference between dirt and soil, right? Come from the dirt, which is the sand, the silt, the clay. So you can find this combination of dirt really anywhere in the world. So you plant a seed, say let's just plant a potato. We're all familiar with that. So we plant this potato, it's in this dirt. You've heard adding compost, right? So when we add compost to the food, or over time we have this natural soil naturally occurs with leaves falling down, and you have animals walking, and you have all this stuff. So there begins to be this level in the dirt, just above the dirt, that's filled with life, that's filled with bacteria and protozoa and nematodes and fungi. And these guys are so important to each one of us and our ability to uptake minerals and nutrients, because what they do is, as the plant is photosynthesizing, right? So we planted our potato, there's little leaves on our potato that are kind of trickling out, covering up the ground. And those leaves are like little solar panels. So the sun, beaming down on each of those little leaves. Those leaves are pulling sunlight energy, photosynthesizing them, taking the carbon that they need to build up their structure. And then the excess carbon, through this like beautiful alchemical process, they're putting out little messages, right, through the roots of the plant. And those messages are saying, they're speaking to the bacteria, the fungi, the protozoa, the nematodes, this microscopic life that's in the soil. They're saying, yeah, we need calcium, we need phosphorus, we need magnesium, all the plants that this vegetable needs. Letting the microbes know. Those microbes, they hear that. They go out, they mine those minerals and nutrients from the dirt, and then they trade it with the plant. So then that's how our plants really are uptaking minerals and nutrients. So the issue has become in the way in which we've transitioned away from using practices like adding compost to the land, or, you know, you hear people say no-till practices. Why no-till practice is important is because this, I'm going to call it the microbiome, right, of the planet. The microbiome is like this like microbial rich space just below the surface of the ground, and it's filled with all these microbes. So if we come in here with a tractor, we come in here with these big heavy pieces of equipment now, that we're not just managing small little farms, we're talking about thousands and thousands of acres all across the United States. And now these practices are shifting globally, right? These big companies, Bayer, formerly known as Monsanto, you know, some of these other big agricultural companies. I was just recently in California and got to see a lot of the nut orchards and see how those are managed. But we're taking these big pieces of equipment and we're tilling to get rid of all the weeds, right? So it's nice and clean. We only have one crop we're focusing on, so this big machinery can come in and harvest. Excuse me one moment. So when we till up the soil, we're exposing all this life that we just learned is key. It's so important for us to be able to uptake minerals and nutrients. We're flipping this life over, we're tilling it up, and we're exposing it to the sun. So the sun comes down, and these microbes are so small. Even under a microscope, you can, you know, you need a microscope to see them. That's how small they are. So you have the sun that is either making them all go dormant or really just like kind of killing them. So it's like this big hand sanitizer, if you will, or this big kind of reset button on our whole microbiome. Those microbes are so important, like I said, for our own gut health. So if we eat a potato that's grown in soil that has all these microbes, one potato can have over 42 essential minerals and nutrients. All the foods we eat, the complexity of the microbes, of the minerals and nutrients that one vegetable can have is so much if the right life in the soil is there to help uptake it. So shifting to how we're growing food now we have these big machines that are coming in, and we're tilling up the land, so you only see this layer of dirt, right? So there's no microbes to start off with. Then we're coming in, and typically on these big scale farms now, we're even coming in and spraying with herbicides and pesticides, coming in with, airplanes, or these big, I don't even know, I call them transformers, because on the farms that I've seen, there's these big tractor looking things that the arms then lay down, and they go through the rows, and there's spray guns that come out all the way, and they're covering thousands of acres at a time, spraying to ensure that no weeds come up and interfere with the crop that we're growing, right? Well, I encourage you to think about Mother Nature and how connected and how much intelligence just there is in, the life cycle that's around us. And so if we're saying that these weeds are interfering, really the weeds that are coming in after we till up is this first line of defense that's really protecting the life in the soil. It's this armor, right? If you scrape your skin, if you fall down and scrape the layer of your skin, like a scab happens, right? And that's like that layer of skin. Imagine every time that layer, or the weeds, right, started to grow back to protect that like vulnerable space on your arm. Every single time it started to heal over, then you came in and like agitated it. So it's like this constant scab, and that's really what we're seeing on the earth right now. So when we sanitize those microbes, right, so then we put food into the ground, how then does the plant grow? Because those microbes are the exchange, if you will, for the minerals and nutrients from the plant. Well, now our plants are really dependent on external fertilizers. So we have these big operations, even small now. I talk to small backyard farmers and gardeners who are, well, what fertilizers do you need? And you go to Lowe's and you go to Home Depot and you go to your gardening store, and they have these big bags of, phosphorus and calcium and all these different like liquid nutrients that you need. Well, you know, in our capitalist society, we're being sold all these things that we need. And, if we just take a step back and like look how we were doing it a while ago before we had all these external inputs that we were needing to grow food, like let nature take control, let nature kind of do the way and provide, right, the environment for a plant to grow. I think this is such an important conversation that, we're really having on a global scale right now, is because the health of the people, your own health, is dependent on the way in which we grow the food. Our gut health is a reflection of the microbiome in the soil. And so, obviously this is a path that I'm super passionate about raising awareness about. I have a community education farm in the Central Valley of Maui, Hawaii, which I'm so blessed to have, because it's really an example and such a learning tool for me to see, a piece of land that was formerly farmed for 144 years in very similar methods and ways in which the majority of the land on the mainland, a majority of the land like across the globe right now is trending towards being that the land was tilled up in big spaces. There was a lot of chemical inputs that were put on the land. There was a lot of herbicides and pesticides that came in and destroyed that microbiome. And now we have a team of, passionate yogis, if you will. We're concerned about our own health. We're concerned about the health of the next generation of people, and having this culture, this wisdom around how to grow food. And it wasn't very long ago that I moved out to this island, and I had zero understanding of how to put a seed in the ground and what it needs to grow into a piece of food that then you can eat and share, with a meal. And we talk about routine and rituals. I mean, we share meals every single day. Every single day we have the opportunity to help change this movement, our movement around food, have conversation around our food is medicine. Get to know who is your farmer. Get to know how are they growing my food. Get to know the grocery stores in which, are supporting the farmers, because the reality of it is there isn't so much support. There isn't so much governmental subsidies for regenerative farmers, for people who are wanting to come in and put that life back into the soil and grow food in ways in which we can have really nutrient dense foods. Everything is trended so much in this way of depending on big machinery, depending on external fertilizers. There's companies that are making so much money off of people thinking that we need, all these other inputs. So in the spirit of connection to the world around us, every time that we share a meal, I think is an opportunity to slow down, connect with your breath, take a moment to pause and give gratitude for, my mind is blown sometimes when I sit down and I look at this like beautiful spread in front of me and think about, wow, where did all of this food have to travel to like get to my plate to right now where I can like enjoy this meal. I mean, there's cheese from the mainland, there's maybe vegetables or meat, or the point is food has to travel so much to get to where we are right now, to have to eat it. And oftentimes we're just so busy with all the little things that we've got going on that we just kind of shovel down the food and on to the next thing. So I wanted to give voice to this conversation today as as part of this challenge, as part of this holistic approach to really creating healthy, holistic rituals and routines in our daily life, is create a relationship with your food and create relationships with your farmer. And if you're inspired by it, you know, don't do anything you don't want to do. But I truly believe that if I go back to my teachings in India, and you know, think about my karmic connection in this life and wanting to show up and be the biggest, brightest, healthiest version of myself, I can't deny the fact that that the food I eat has such an impact on not only myself but the world around me. Because every time I shop, every time I spend $1 at a store, I'm supporting, you know, I'm supporting one of these movements. And you know, it's not easy to shift something like a food system, a global food system, but I do believe that, you know, it's like a rippling effect, a little snowball effect. The more conversation that we can have with our friends, with our communities, the more we can understand the importance of fostering a connection with, you know, all life on this planet. I think that that's going to be, I think that just so much beauty can blossom from there. And for me, that's really at the root, at the heart of my yoga practice, is bringing awareness around food as medicine, and, you know, lacing that in so beautifully with this actual like movement that we have, right? Our actual like asana practice. And the healthier we can be in our bodies, the stronger we can be on our mats. And it's just this beautiful, beautiful reciprocity, right, that we can have with the rest of the world. So I'm not going to do a guided movement practice for today. I just wanted to hold space for a conversation. You know, encourage you guys to do a little bit of investigation, or even just pause the next time you have a meal and bless that food, and, you know, bless the people that really, like, as farmers, are dedicating their lives to growing food for you to have access to. So just take a moment and cultivate that gratitude. Send out some prayers and some blessings to the microbiome of the planet, and all the people that are working super hard to help shift this food movement in a positive direction. I'm going to put a couple of links links below of really inspiring podcasts around this conversation today, around food as medicine, around the microbiome, around the connection between our gut health and the health of the planet, and little tips and tricks that you can do in your daily life to help us move this movement in a positive direction. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, sending lots of love and aloha wherever you're tuning in to, wherever you're tuning in at. And I have a couple days left of the challenge. I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am. And yeah, I hope to connect with you guys on our Daily Ritual platform studio. Check in with you guys soon. Aloha.